Hey guys, welcome back to Dice and Fire News. Today we'll be taking a look at update number 60 for the Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game by Cool Mini or Not, and there are a lot of changes, so we're just going to jump in. First off, they talk about orders. Orders are abilities that can be used once per game round, and we've already seen them, but they just kind of reestablish them here and then point out that we should get tokens for them. So, people that buy the game retail will be getting cardboard tokens, and those of us that back the Kickstarter will be getting that sweet, sweet plastic. So, cool. Not that groundbreaking. Next, they talk about dice. The game has several cards that reference D3s, which are three-sided dice, which obviously can't exist. Instead, we take a D6, normal everyday household D6, and it would be a dice with two ones, two twos, and two threes on it, and you just roll it, and there you go. You also just take a normal six-sided dice, roll it, and then divide the number you get by 2, and then round up, and you have a D3. But Cool Mini or Not is hoping to attract people that are new to tabletop, so I see where they're going with this. Keep it simple. Next, they mention how they're going to combine the rulebook and the scenario book into one, basically citing that people are having a hard time flipping between the two. Since I don't have the scenario book, I can't attest to that, although personally I think I like the idea of having my scenario right here in front of me, and then I can reference the rules and I can reference the scenario without flipping back and forth between the book. So I don't actually like this change, but again, I don't even have either of these books in my hand, so what do I know? And may very well simplify things a lot. All right, next we talk about some of the sculpts that we've gotten, basically the stuff we unlocked in the last bit of the campaign. That's these 6 guys right here. They will definitely be appearing later in hero boxes. And so when you buy, let's say you buy the Stark Box 2, it'll have Mage Mormont in it, and maybe Edmure Tully and a couple other Stark heroes, but you already have Mage Mormont because you got it in the Kickstarter. Well, what they've done is they've changed all these 6 guys. When we get them in the Kickstarter, they'll be Kickstarter exclusive minis, and what comes out later will be different sculpts. So that's a nice thing they did for us that they probably didn't have to do. I guess you could decide to be upset about this, saying like, "Oh, I'm going to buy another Mage Mormont," but frankly, that was always going to happen. So there's no reason to get upset. Okay, so now we're going to go into the clarifications that they've released, and and then after that, we're going to go through the cards that they've spoiled. So don't freak out when I go past the cards, like I'm about to and already have. First of all, they added a bit about timing conflicts. Basically, when the first player attacks, he has to declare if he's using any abilities or cards, and then the second player has to declare if they're using an ability or card. This isn't a huge issue for friendly games, although I guess it could be if you're really competitive, but this definitely be an issue during tournaments, so good that they've kind of resolved that. I've also pointed out that modifiers can never reduce a result below 0. In regards to panic tests, this basically just limits the effectiveness of of stacking negative panic bonuses on certain units with good morale, like for example the Direwolves or the Berserkers. Probably won't have a huge effect on gameplay, but it's good to have it ironed out. The biggest change that they made is definitely charging, which is right here. What they've essentially done is they've removed the auto fail from rolling a 1. If you watch these videos, you would imagine I'm happy about this. I've grabbed about it a lot. Basically, every time like an ability involving charging comes up, I always point out like, oh, but you might fail your charge. So now that we know that at least whenever you have positioned yourself so you're already within your movement range, there's no way to fail a charge. That's really good. I think that most of the community is probably pretty happy about this. I'm sure there are some dissenters out there, but if there was anything, in my opinion, that was going to break the game, it was this. And I didn't really, well, I did complain about it, but I didn't complain about it too much because I was positive they were going to fix this. It's too big of a hole. It's really easy to roll 3 or even 4 ones in a row, kind of almost inevitable if you play enough of this game. And if that happens, neither you or your opponent are going to have any fun. So I think this was a really good change, really smart change, and I'm super happy about it. Let's look at the other changes. Okay, so banding is gone. And they basically stated that it was creating 2 if two band units were fighting each other, you just had a large, big, giant, massive miniatures in the middle, and there was a lot of tactics going on. And I agree with that, but my biggest issue is really just the amount of board space those band units were taking up, because they decided to make very large miniatures, which is good because they're visually appealing. But as a result, the trays are really large for this style of rank and flank mass combat. They're larger than pretty much any other ones. Then when you stack two of them next to each other, you just have this giant unit, and it just takes up a lot of space on the board. And I was getting nervous that it'd be hard for units to really maneuver around each other, especially once you start throwing impassable terrain in. I'm sad to see it go, because I've certainly started to make plans around banding, but I think long term it's going to be healthy for the game, and that's what they claim in their playtesting, which I believe them. So I'm happy about this. I'm definitely happy about this. And finally, they've moved resilience. Instead of resilience, units that had it will just get additional wounds, so they'll just have more hit points. They claim that resilience was confusing players. I don't really see how, but okay, let's streamline the game. Nothing wrong with that. The whole point of this is that it's going to be a easy to understand, and then hopefully have some depth once you get into it. So cool. That's not a bad change. Now I'm going to scroll up to the top, and then we'll go down and look at the spoiled cards. All right, so we got the Champion of the Faith. He is essentially a less good but cheaper version of the Blackfish. Side note, you may notice I have not done the Blackfish update yet. I intend to. I admit I've been slipping. Okay, so let's look at this guy. When this unit passes a morale test, one engaged enemy with this unit becomes vulnerable. So that's certainly good for anytime you're in a grinding situation. Making your enemy vulnerable and then counterattacking and damaging them is good. It is interesting that there aren't a lot of Lannister units with exceptional morale, but of course this unit, the Champion of Faith, will probably come with the Warrior Sons. For all we know, those guys will have a good morale, so this might be the perfect spot for them. Next, we have this new John Umber card. This is actually the Commander card. This actually replaces the old Commander attachment, and what that card would do is it would allow you to reroll your misses, but then any remaining misses would be dealt to you as damage. Frankly, I wasn't a fan of it. I felt like it did too little for too much potential punishment. This card has much more manageable punishment, and so whereas the old one was almost bad to the point that I would reconsider even taking Great John as a commander, I think this one's probably better. What it does is when you attack, the enemy becomes panicked and vulnerable, which just translate into more damage, and then you take D3 wounds. So I like this card a lot better. It definitely actually increased my interest in Great John as a commander. So here we have our new Sworn Swords. Banding is gone. Their defense has gone from +5 to +4, so that's a huge buff, which they probably needed. And then Stark Fury has been replaced. Before, what it would do is it would allow you to attack at your highest dice value, whereas now what it does is, and it would let you do that, and then you would take additional damage. And what it does now is it gives you +1 to hit and critical blow, which is a really good ability, one I like a lot. And then it deals you D3 wounds. So it definitely changes these guys a lot, because before they were these kind of weak guys that could hit hard at the end, which is a fairly rare ability. In fact, one that's only really seen in the Berserkers right now. And now, I think you want to use this in the beginning, where you can maximize its use. It's a little less good when you're down to your last line, because now you're only rolling 4 dice instead of the 8 that you would get in the beginning. It certainly changes the unit a lot. We'll have to see how it plays out. All right, and then we come down to the Direwolf Summer. He's actually the same. Resilience has been changed to additional wounds. And the only other difference is now it actually mentions his free activation at the beginning of his turn. Or, sorry, his free maneuver at his activation, which is cool. I suspected it already had because he had the cavalry unit, but it's good to see it on the card. So now there's no more confusion about whether or not that ability exists. And then finally, the Knights of Castle Rock, which have totally changed. They now have Lannister Supremacy, which is the ability that the Lannister Guardsmen have, which I assume means Lannister Guardsmen don't have it anymore. And they've lost their old ability, which was pretty wild, gave them a global bonus to all Knights of Castle Rock when you claim the crown position on the tactics board. That card was probably very exploitable, so it's probably good that it's changed. And obviously now their resilience is gone and they have 3 wounds. I'm not sure if this is a buff or a nerf on these guys. We'll have to kind of wait and see. I think I definitely like the other ability better, but I could see how it could be totally abused. So it's probably a smart change as far as the game's health is concerned. And that's actually everything in Update 60. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And I'll definitely be doing the Blackfish soon. So check that out. And thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.